Well, we come to a time in the series when we should start to be able to get something back for all the effort that we put into our meditation, like maybe in some slightly more applied ways. So today we'll talk about problem solving and how meditation can perhaps help us in this respect. But before we do that, having talked last week about use of time, I found a much better presentation than the one I gave on a web page online, so I thought you might be interested in that. They had this thing called 1 million hours, which if you work it out, if you have a lifespan of about 90 years, then your life consists of 1 million hours. Okay, so we look on the sort of optimistic side that we're going to live for 90 years. And apparently you spend 25 years sleeping, 17 years trying to lose weight, 1.5 years in the bathroom, 2.5 years cooking, 1,765 days or 4.8 years with your friends and family. And that's apparently not the part where you are forced to live with your family as a child. 115 days laughing. 10,625 days online. 14 days kissing. 1 year picking your outfits. 5 months moaning. Yeah, so as I said last week, it's up to you how you use your time. But if you don't make an effort, then that's probably what you'll get by default. Yeah. But today we talk about something more to do with our problem solving. And most people, when they come across problems, well, they sort of have an attempt at solving them according to what they're used to using as solutions for problems, and possibly without really realizing that problems can come in different forms, and possibly different forms of problems may have different solutions which are appropriate to those problems. And the very first thing that meditation will perhaps help you to do is to sort out in your mind what exactly you are up against when you confront a problem. And problems can be of seven types. Being able to meditate will help us to look at, perhaps, to know which sort we're dealing with. So, the categories. There can be problems that require rational solutions. It can be material or linear problems. It can be problems of which you are a part. And there are something known as vicious circles. There are problems to do with your attitude. And there are problems that are better prevented rather than letting them become a problem in the first place. So is that 7? Oh, one more maybe. Okay, and problems you can't tackle on your own. Okay, so look at each of these and see how meditation might input into that problem solving. So rational solutions, usually even if you're not a meditator, you probably have a good attempt at solving problems even without using meditation too much. And the sort of things which require a rational solution might be things like your house being on fire. So generally, being a meditator would not give you any particular advantage in dealing with such sorts of problems, because you know that there's a way out of the problem and you do it as quickly as possible. So, you throw water on the fire as soon as you can, sort of thing. You wouldn't probably do that any quicker for being a meditator. But meditation, if you are a meditator, would help you to avoid reacting emotionally, perhaps, when what is required is action, for example. So not wasting time on that sort of thing when you need to be in there and getting the solution to the problem. I've seen people when fires break out and they change personality and become sort of a screaming hysterical wreck. If you are a meditator, then you take it in your stride probably more easily than the next person. And in the same sort of style of thinking, some things are material or linear problems, which means generally that one thing leads to another thing happening. There's not multiple reasons for something happening. Therefore, you can basically sort of work your way back through to the root of the problem. So sometimes it's easy to do that. Go back to the putting out the fire, for example. Sometimes you need patience to actually see something through, even if it's a simple problem to solve. It's a bit of a no-brainer to solve the problem. In other words, you still need to have the patience to follow through with it. Sometimes you know what the solution to the problem is. It's a very simple one, but it's not something you're going to find easy to do, like maybe telling something to somebody which they are not likely to want to hear from you, but you're going to have to say it anyway. To have the patience to follow through on that may be the thing that meditation helps you to do in that particular circumstances. And to see it through to completion, not to sort of do a U-turn halfway. So even for very basic problems, nothing very exotic here, meditation is already helping you to make a better job of solving the problem. Next sort of problem are problems of which you are a part. Don't know if I told you the story about the holy water. I could tell you the story if you're really interested. Well, there was a couple and they were having some problems, and the upshot of the problem was that the husband was coming home later and later because he was staying out late doing drinking. And probably in the back of his mind he was really hoping that by the time he came home, if he came home late enough, then maybe she would have gone to bed already, so she wouldn't be there to comment. But she never was. She always made sure she stayed up, especially to give him a piece of her mind as soon as he came in the door. So as a result of this problem, the lady, the wife, went to see some monks and asked, what should I do about my problem? And the monk said, well, what you need for this is holy water. Yeah? Agreed? So holy water solves all problems, okay? But he said, for this holy water, what you really need to do with it is something rather special, and you need to put it in your mouth a few moments before your husband comes through the door. So when you hear your husband coming home late at night, you say your prayers, put the holy water in your mouth, and that will solve the problem. So she tried this. The moment she heard the garden gate opening, then she would say her prayers and put the holy water in her mouth. And then when the husband came through the door, he thought, well, that's strange. Normally my wife says more to me than that. In this particular case, nothing. And he thought, well, how strange, and went to bed. And the next day, same thing happened. Came home through the door, there's his wife sitting there. Okay, and he thought, well, maybe my wife's not so bad after all. And, when he looked at her, it even looked like she had a little bit of a smile on her face as well, because like, if you have a lot of water in your mouth, it's sort of you got this sort of smiley sort of appearance. And before long, he started to come home earlier, and this whole drinking thing sort of phased out. So, holy water solved the problem, right? Or maybe even though she was not the reason really for the problem, but she was a part of the problem. So sometimes realizing you're part of the problem is about perspectives on things. Even though we've got bigger screens now, you may recognize this picture. Escher? Yeah, but the interesting thing about this picture is there's these people walking around and around on a staircase, and the ones who are walking up walk up and up and up and up, and when they get round to the same corner, they end up back where they started. The people walking down the staircase, they walk all the way around 360 degrees, and they get back to exactly where they were when they started. So if they're just looking down at their feet when they're climbing up those stairs or going down the stairs, then they are going to be none the wiser about their predicament. The only person who could tell them what predicament they're in is a person who can stand back from the whole situation. So there's actually a person in this painting down here who's maybe having a look at what all those people are doing and getting a proper perspective on it. If it's things to do with ourselves, we tend not to be able to stand back and see how we might appear to other people, and that can be a weakness for us. So if you are a meditator, sometimes it helps you to stand back and look at yourself in the context we find ourselves in. It's very easy to put the blame on someone else for everything, but sometimes the easiest part of a problem to solve can be the bit that is to do with us. So even if most of the blame could be put on another person, but we can solve the little bit to do with us, maybe that makes solving the problem easier. Vicious circles. These are problems that tend to go around in circles and add to the seriousness of the problem. So, for example, in a third world country, crops fail, people have no income, people can't manage to buy any fertilizer as a result of having no income, and then next year the quality of the soil becomes poorer still, and the crops fail worse than before, and it goes on and on like this. The only way to get out of such a problem is to have the acuity of mind to be able to see where to break the cycle, the vicious cycle, in a way that you can actually do something to improve this problem. Yeah. So sometimes it's not obvious where to do that, but generally you need to sort of think outside the box in order to get out of that sort of positive feedback loop. You could do many things, but some of them are not that obvious. Generally it would involve some sort of generosity. Yeah? So you need to do something that is hard to do in order to break out of this cycle. So a person who is a meditator, possibly they'll be able to see through to a place where it's possible to break this cycle and turn it to go in the other direction. Same thing happens with dishonesty. In school perhaps, children not doing their homework and then lying to the teacher about why they've not done their homework, and then because they're not very good at lying, then the teacher asks more questions about the homework, and because they don't want to be caught, then they tell more lies to cover up the original lies. So again, at some stage there's going to need to be some honesty confronted there. Breaking out of the cycle is never an easy thing, but it takes the courage which you would get from perhaps meditating to see why, to break out of the cycle you have to actually improve something personal. Conflicts, because you cannot forgive them, you become more aggressive. And then because you become more aggressive, then they cannot forgive you. So because they cannot forgive you, then because they become more aggressive because you're not forgiving them. So there's something hard which you have to do, which takes courage of mind again. Meditation can fit in there in a way that helps you to break out of the conflict. Attitude problems. This is again coming back to how we relate to the problem. Sometimes what you get suffering in your lives, but there can be a second sort of danger of the suffering, which is that there's something that we make of the suffering that we have in our lives. And if what we make of the suffering is particularly extreme, then it can even overshadow the suffering itself. There's a story told in the ancient Buddhist scriptures about a person who is being shot with a poison arrow. Heard this one before? And the doctor turns up to pull out the poison arrow in a timely fashion, and they said, "Hang on a moment, I want to know who shot this arrow. I'm not just going to be shot with an arrow for nothing. I want to know who's responsible for this. And I want to know, how can they possibly make such an arrow like this? And what sort of poison have they used?" And the doctor's saying, "Hang on, you sure you really want the answers to all these questions when what you really need is that arrow removed as quickly as possible?" So the attitude can sometimes make a person suffer more than the actual incident. So dealing with the attitude side of things, again, meditation comes in handy. It helps us to have a more positive attitude to problems. and problems better prevented. We have great respect for the criminal justice system, but I don't know how often you may have realized how rough and ready it can be. To give an example, if you have your car stolen, usually that is bad news. Certainly you won't have a car to use for a while, and if you're very lucky and you've paid your insurance premium, then eventually you might get something back for it. But in the meantime, it's the reporting the theft will mean that a lot of very expensive processes are set in motion, where you have to get all the police out tracking your criminal down, bringing them to court, trying them, convicting them, possibly putting them away in jail, and all of this may not do anything to return your car. In the meantime, all the cost of the criminal process, whether it's tracking down the criminal, convicting them, or putting them in jail and keeping them in jail with 3 warm meals a day, whatever, actually this is billed to the taxpayer, which you are also a taxpayer. So basically you are paying to keep them in prison. So there's a sort of irony in this system. And while the criminal is in prison, they get to meet with lots of other criminals who are possibly much better at what they're doing than they were. So by the time they come out, they've got lots of new ideas about how not to get caught next time. So it's a very strange system. If the people who were going to become car thieves never became a car thief in the first place, it would be much, much better for society. It would save a heck of a lot of money. And, well, I'm not sure the police will be out of a job, but they can do nice things like rescue cats out of trees and stuff instead, instead of having to chase people around the country. So, some things, if good people stay good, that can be a great saving grace in society. So, again, meditation helps good people to stay good. It gives them the sort of positive vibes of mind which would help them to want to continue being a good person instead of lapsing from that sort of good track record which they originally had. So, yes, different sorts of problems. Some people ask whether... there's one more. Problems you can't tackle alone. We are all really great individualists, and we like to think that we are sort of Superman or woman, and there's nothing that we cannot tackle. But sometimes we forget that we can't tackle everything alone. If you've ever seen people trying to handle large objects, for example, you realize that if you can't manage to take the weight of it, then you drop it and damage it. And to give a sort of an example. So you actually might need to ask someone to help you occasionally on certain things in order to do the best job possible. To realize your own strengths and weaknesses, this is something which is very hard to achieve. But generally speaking, people who examine themselves constantly through a regular meditation practice would be more likely to realize what they can and cannot manage to do, and to have the humility to actually admit they need help occasionally from other people. That can be a sort of problem which would be more easy for you to appreciate if you're a meditator. Sometimes you need the harmony with other people to be able to get them to help you. That would also be something which hopefully would come as a byproduct from your meditation. If you have a problem, then what do you do about it? Do you sit down and think, what's the solution? What's the solution? Have a meditation on what's my problem, And that probably would not be a very successful way of solving a problem. But if you sit down and you regard your meditation as a space in your mind into which you can sort of release a problem and let it sort of find its own solution during the time you're meditating without actually dwelling on the problem, So you've got the problem in the back of your mind as you are sitting down to meditate. Often you find that during your meditation something will come to you which you will find helpful to you coming out of the meditation. It's often the case that this happens. Often another thing happens as well, which is when you come to the end of your meditation, what you thought was the problem when you started your meditation no longer seems so important anymore. So that can also be a way of solving problems, which is the problem wasn't that important anyway. Yeah, it just seemed important at the time. So you've changed your attitude to the problem as a result of the meditation. That can sometimes happen. Not for every problem. If your house is burning down, I wouldn't think that would be the appropriate way, but of course you'll be able to see what sort of problem you're dealing with and know the appropriate way. But for many cases, things that are really bugging you, if you sit down and meditate, often you can find a way through. And often the meditation itself can be the way out of the problem. There are some schools of Buddhism which said that it's just your attitude to everything that is a problem. But I think in this particular school of Buddhism where we're practicing, we tend to regard things like your house burning down are not just an attitude problem. Okay, we tend to require, some sort of active input to the problem as well as your attitude. Yes, so we tend to be quite pragmatic about things that require pragmatism. Today we have a little bit of a new new application for our meditation, and it can also help with anger when it interferes with our problem solving too. And this is what's known as meditation on loving kindness. You've had quite a lot of meditations from me already, I think no less than 4 or 5, but this is one which I wouldn't recommend as an alternative to what you've already studied, but I would recommend it as a supplement. And it's something you can do towards the end of your meditation in order to use your meditation to almost return some of the benefits of your meditation to the others around you. So instead of just being all about me and all about escaping from my problems inside myself, here is something you can do to actually return something to the world around you in a positive way. What you actually do with a loving kindness meditation is, having built up some sort of positive inner experience as a result of your meditation, at the end of the 30 minutes or whatever, you have a sense of being centered within that experience. And that experience may be a feeling, it may be something you can see, it may be a sense of light. And if you are able to place your mind gently at the center of that experience, and I mean very gently, as usual, what you find is that there's a sense in which that experience somehow melts away or becomes rarefied, almost like liquid, almost like something solid becoming liquid, melting away, or almost like something liquid evaporating and becoming somehow larger from the center. And you allow that to spread your inner experience first to the whole of yourself, so the whole of your body, with the intention or the affirmation that may I be well and happy, may I be free of suffering. You can probably fairly obvious where your problems lie, but as you practice it more, it becomes easier to sort of include more and more beings and people in your sort of little circle of loving kindness. So at that point your mind has a more refined quality to it. Yeah. 2 final little hints from our series on keeping our mind centered. Immediately on waking, reconnect your attention with the center of the body. Yeah. For those of you who wake up and you can't remember where you are, this would be particularly good advice. And before getting up, take a moment to recollect you're still lucky to be alive, that it won't last forever, and to spread the love and kindness to all living beings in the world briefly before starting the day. A couple of announcements for those of you with a long-term view of your meditation practice. We have a whole day of meditation on Saturday the 10th of December, which you're welcome to join. If people are gradually signing up for that, that would be a good way to sort of put all you've learned during the course into practice, and possibly be able to take it further than you can on a single meditation on a Wednesday evening. Also, for the schedule for next year, the end of the series doesn't mean the end of the world. After New Year, there's a new series starting up where the lecture materials are different from what we have had on this series. So it's less on meditation skills, but more on applications of the meditation. So it's called sort of loosely meditation self-transformation. So using the meditation to work on yourself, apply that in aspects of life. So there's actually a sketch of what's on the course on the registration desk for anyone who's interested in a sneak preview. But roughly it starts on the 4th of January and goes through till about mid-March on a Wednesday evening. If you want to bring in new people, friends, so on, they would be welcome, because we'll start up again sort of going through an orientation for the course from the meditation side, but the lecture materials will be different. Yeah. Also, we have a special little souvenir for Franz, who's just reappeared after Thanksgiving. Franz, some of you may not know this, but there's a couple of groups of non-Thais who come to our temple the Wednesday evening, but also quite a few come on Sundays as well, who have a slightly more of an inclination towards learning about behind the scenes of what goes on in the Buddhist temple. Also, as well as the Wednesday group giving a contribution for Katina this year, also the Sunday group did as well. On Sundays we have like a long meditation for 1 hour in the morning from 9:30 till 10:30, then there's some chanting and stuff, and then we usually have lunch together, and then there's a little sort of teaching and questions and answers in the afternoon from 12:30 onwards. So yes, Franz is the only member of that group who has not had his souvenir given to him, and if you'd like to come forward now, you can receive that now.
So this past Sunday, we received the gift. Eslene's one of the members, Mike Howard, Franz, and Davey, and we put our funds together to make a big donation for this past Katina, and he's receiving his gift from that, since he wasn't here on Sunday.
So next week, next Wednesday, will be the last of the present series, apart from the one-day retreat. Yeah.
And then also, just for anyone else, if you ever have an interest, Sunday is a very special day to come as well. The information's online if you want to see the schedule. But Sundays, I think, is very special because not only do we meditate, but we also get a more intimate session with Venerable Nicholas. It's a lot smaller, so it's easier to ask questions, and very often we stay way past the hour just asking random questions that I think people are just a little bit more not as comfortable in a bigger setting. So if you guys ever have any interest, everyone here is welcome. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So at this time, let us pay respect to our teaching venerable. Bow. 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 All right, and we'll make our donation for the day from all of us to our center. I can just get everyone else to come up. And then again, we're going to connect as a chain of energy. Now keep in mind, when we do this, you want to put both hands, and that means it's like your whole body, essentially. That's kind of the outlook of it. So let us respectfully give it to the Venerable, keeping your mind at the center of your body as you make a wish for yourself.
For the yellow cloth. So whatever you wish for in life, when those wishes come true easily, and on top of any wishes, may you all enjoy happiness, strength, and security in life, for yourselves and your families. May you have freedom from things like tornadoes, and may you prosper in your business and spiritual lives. And when you come to meditate, may you be able to attain inner peace easily, and now and forevermore.
Rejoice in your merits, everyone.
And enjoy your pandan
Yes,
cakes.
don't forget. So we have a very nice lady that comes on